Hello there, and welcome to this guide on how to set up your Raspberry Pi system for our machine learning course. So we are going to need a couple of key materials over here. You should have these already. We will need our Raspberry Pi 3B or model B+. We're going to need our Raspberry Pi power supply, which we are going to use to plug into the Raspberry Pi. We're going to need our micro SD card. The micro SD card should be at least 8 gigabytes, but we recommend about 16 gigabytes or more. We are going to be using this to store the Raspberry Pi's data. And you may need a micro SD card to USB adapter in order to be able to connect it to your computer. Some computers have an SD card adapter already, but be sure to check your computer, and if you have any doubts, get the USB adapter, so just to be safe. Okay. So first, we're going to need to download a few things. So first, we are going to need this SD card formatter. This is particularly for used SD cards to prepare them for use, clear them of all the unnecessary files, and prepare them for our Raspberry Pi. So if you go into this sdcardformatter.org, you scroll all the way down here, you click for Windows, scroll through the user license agreement, and you click accept. Then it will download a zip file with the installer. Once you run the installer, you should have yourself the SD card formatter. And we will get to that in just a second. Next, we're going to need our Raspberry Pi OS. This is a file that we are going to be putting onto our SD card so that it will be able to run the Raspberry Pi operating system. So if we follow this link over here, you'll see this area over here, Raspberry Pi OS with desktop and recommended software. So we're going to want this one, and you will want to click download zip. And for zip files, you may be able to extract them already. If you aren't, then for Windows, you're going to want to download this 7-zip over here. Next, we're going to need Balena Etcher. This allows us to flash our operating system onto the micro SD card. So if we go over here and scroll down, we have this download for Windows button. So you click that, and you will download Balena Etcher. Next, we're going to want to scan the Raspberry Pi's IP address so we can eventually connect to it. So we're going to be using this advanced IP scanner. You click that, and you hit this free download button over here. Next, we're going to need to secure shell into our Pi's command line. In order to do that, we're going to need something called PuTTY. So if we hit this over here, we have two options over here, 32-bit or 64-bit. This essentially boils down to how powerful your computer is. So if you have like a simple laptop, then 62-bit is probably safer. But if you have a more powerful computer, then chances are you'll be able to handle 64-bit. Either way, these both do essentially the same thing. So you can click either one of these, and you can download the installer for PuTTY. Finally, in order to connect to the Raspberry Pi's desktop, we are going to want to download this VNC viewer over here. So you're going to want to hit this download VNC viewer button over here, and that will download the program we need. Okay. So these are all our programs that we need. They might take a little while to download, but once you have them up and running, we are going to prepare our SD card. So you have your SD card plugged in into your new drive. This is the D drive. Mine's labeled boot. It might be labeled something else. And you see over here, we have this spare file over here. We don't exactly want that in our SD card when we're going to be using it for the Raspberry Pi. So I mean, I could just delete it, but there could be a lot of other files with a lot of other dependencies. So that's why we are going to format it. So if I go into here and SD card formatter, that application we just downloaded for the SD card, select card, make sure it selects that card matching the one over here. Make sure it correctly identifies the size of it. We're going to hit quick format over here. Volume label should just stay as boot, and then we hit format. Now it will confirm that it will erase all data on the card, and it can take some time especially with a lot of files. So make sure if you have any important files on your SD card, please move them to another portion like your desktop, or if you have another storage device, move those files into there. But if this card is brand new, then there shouldn't be any files in there. This just prepares it. So hit that, and your SD card is successfully formatted. It's clean slate, and it's ready for use. So what we did was both low-level and high-level formatting. Low-level formatting removes all the previously existing data and information on the card. That basically means we're deleting everything. And then we create a new file system ready for the new data. That's high-level formatting. So now we're going to need to flash our operating system onto the SD card. So if we take a look at our file system over here, we have this zip file that we downloaded earlier. So we are going to want to extract all. And it should take about a minute. In the meantime, let's get our Balena etcher over. And we have ourselves our Balena etcher. Make sure it's connected to this SDHC card. Says that D file over there that matches over here our boot file over here. Make sure that's over there. Now, once we're done unzipping, we will be able to hit this flash from file over here. But for now, it's going to take about 4 minutes because it's a pretty hefty file. It's I want to say it's around like 6 to 8 gigabytes. There's a whole operating system in there. And we see here that our file here is done. We have our RASP iOS Buster Full ARMHF. This is our disk image file. We're going to be using that. We're going to be flashing that onto our SD card. So if we go into our Balena etcher over here, we're going to want to flash from file. Hit that. We're going to want to search. I'm in my Raspberry Pi file over here. This is where I saved it, in this folder over here. And we have this disk image over here. Open that. Have that ready. Select it on the SD card. It's ready to flash. Hit the flash button, and it should take a few minutes. All right, so at the end of this over here, it should say flash complete. One successful device. If it has anything red over here, then something might be wrong. Feel free to contact us, and we will help you out from there. Now, as you can see over here, something that Etcher does is it automatically ejects the SD card once it's finished flashing. So we're done flashing. We can close this for now. Reinsert your SD card, because just to make sure it's still connected. We're in the boot file over here, and wouldn't you know it, there's a whole load of files over here. This is all the operating system files that we're going to need. So don't touch any of them, but we are going to need to insert 2 more files over here. So we're going to need to first select right click inside this file over here, new text document. Enter in here. This is just a new text document. It's going to be blank. Then we're going to hit save as. And we are going to want to save this as open double quote, SSH close double quote. This is the file that's going to allow us to use the secure shell on it. So once we put this file in there, and once the Raspberry Pi boots, it will be able to access secure shell. So it's important that we have these double quotes over here, SSH, and then we have this save as type. We don't want it to be a text file. We want to save it as all files. And once that happens, it will literally save as a file named SSH, no extension. So I hit save. Go down here. And you should see this file over here named SSH. And if you look at this type area, it should just say file, not a text document, but just file. So now this next one is going to be a little bit more complicated. So make another new text document. And we're going to be using a bit of the presentation over here. So we are going to need to input our. We're going to be using our inputs for our Wi-Fi information so that the Raspberry Pi can connect to Wi-Fi. Now, normally you would need to use the Raspberry Pi and connect to the Wi-Fi like you would a regular computer, but without any way to connect to it, which would require Wi-Fi. It can't connect to Wi-Fi on its own. So it's a bit of a catch-22, and this is sort of a workaround. So first off, we're going to type in country equals US. That tells the Raspberry Pi that it is situated in the United States. Update _config equals 1. Then CTRL underscore interface equals /var /run /WPA underscore supplicant. Now here is where our network comes in. So we're going to need network equals open curly braces. A few lines down, close the curly braces in there. Make sure that closes there. 2 spaces for indent. Scan underscore SSID equals 1. Now here's where things are going to differ for everyone. So we're going to do SSID equals, in double quotes, we're going to input our Wi-Fi network name. So if I had a Wi-Fi name named Skynet, then I would put Skynet in quotes there. And over here, we are going to say PSK equals another double quotes. So this is where you're going to put your Wi-Fi's password. So for example, this is not an actual Wi-Fi. I have my own file. But for example, if the Wi-Fi is J Connor 1994 or something like that, and that's how you would input your password. Now note that it doesn't hide the password, so just make sure you are you're keeping this secure. Okay. So now we're going to save this as another file. So similarly to the other one, we are going to do open double quotes, WPA underscore supplicant dot CONF, close double quotes. Now we want this dot .conf to be the new extension, not text. So to save as type, we're going to hit all files. And once we hit save, it should save as WPA underscore supplicant dot .conf. So we hit save. Now over here, we see our WPA underscore supplicant saved as a conf file. Now I already have my own Wi-Fi in here. So I'm going to get rid of this here. Also going to get rid of this new text document, and I have my Raspberry Pi folder over here. I already have my WPA supplicant with my actual Wi-Fi. So I'm just going to copy that in there. So we have our SSH, which is empty, and our WPA supplicant type conf file. Make sure it's not text. And it has our Wi-Fi information. So with that, if I'm correct, then with this, our SD card is complete and ready for the Raspberry Pi. So go ahead, right-click the area over here, safely eject it. Who's currently in use? So get rid of these files over here, and it's been ejected. So we can eject our SD card over here. This is just the SD adapter. And I can remove this micro SD adapter over here. Then we take our, where is it? Okay. So we take our Raspberry Pi. I put it in a case, but you should see over here, there's this area for the micro SD card. So go ahead and stick that in. And with that, it is plugged in. Now, you have your power source plugged in. You have your power source plugged in, and you should see a power source area over here. And go ahead and plug that in. Now, if you quickly see, not sure if you caught it, but yeah, if you see that green light over there, flashing green a bit, that says that your Raspberry Pi is booting up, and there shouldn't really, and chances are there shouldn't be anything wrong with your SD card or your Raspberry Pi itself. So we have it connected. So given everything is all right, it should be connected to the internet. So make sure you're connected to the same network as the Raspberry Pi you sent the SSH to. So now we're going to want to find the Pi's IP address. So go on over to your advanced IP scanner, and you're going to want to hit this big scan button. You're going to want to wait a few minutes for the Raspberry Pi to boot up, but after that, hit scan. And to make things easier, you can sort by manufacturer. And chances are you will find this little icon over here. Manufacturer Raspberry Pi Foundation. That's your Raspberry Pi. Now, if you have multiple Raspberry Pis around, or if you don't see this Raspberry Pi Foundation over here, what you want to do is you're going to want to look via IP address. So your home IP should have the same first couple of entries over here. So my home network starts with 192.168. So anything with that IP address should be within that, should be in our home and connected to the internet. Then just go by process of elimination. It's not something by Texas Instruments, nothing by Sono, nothing. It shouldn't be by Intel or anything by Apple. And if it's unlabeled, check these devices over here. See if you can use any of their IP addresses. But in my case, it's been recognized. You're able to see this Raspberry Pi Foundation over here. So the main things we are going to want to focus on here are the IP and the MAC address. So the MAC address is the physical identifier of the Raspberry Pi. It's a hardware identification thing. When you connect to the internet, it has the same MAC address every time. Though if you connect to a different wireless router, this IP will change because it's a sort of identifier that the network gives to it. So if you connect to a different Wi-Fi with your Raspberry Pi, then this IP may change. So make sure you keep in mind this IP over here because we are going to be using it. Okay? So next, we are going to want to connect to the Raspberry Pi. So if we go over here, enter PuTTY, we have this PuTTY configuration over here. So we are going to want to enter the host name, or in this case, we are putting the IP address. So if I take a look at, let's see here. we take a look at our advanced IP scanner, the Raspberry Pi is 192.168.0.25. 192.168.0.25. Now you can keep the port as the default. Make sure that the connection type is SSH. Now chances are you're not going to want to type this IP address over and over and over again. So in order to make things quicker for us later on, we are going to want to save a session. So I'm going to type in pi3-Wi-Fi. And I am going to click save. So this should save the settings for the IP address, the port, and our connection type, which is SSH. So if we double click this, potential security breach. If you have that, you can just ignore that, because so you're going to want to hit yes to update the PuTTY's cache and just continue connecting. And over here you should see this login ads. So if you see that, then congratulations, you have connected to your Raspberry Pi via secure shell. So once we have this here, by default, our Raspberry Pi's username is Pi, and now it asks for a password. Now, if you can see on the slide over here, the default username Pi, its password is Raspberry. So something about this secure shell over here. If you type any character, it won't show how many characters you've typed in or what characters you typed in. So be sure you type this in very carefully. So again, the default password, Raspberry. Type in Raspberry, press enter. And you are now connected to the Raspberry. You are now connected to the Raspberry Pi. So we can access the Raspberry Pi via secure shell now. So we can hit ls. We can see our different folders, our downloads, our documents. We have our desktop over here. We can do pwd, our working directory. We are in the home folder inside the Pi folder. So now we're going to want to have a GUI, a graphical interface. We want to be able to see the desktop and interact with it, because let's face it, it's a lot easier and a lot simpler to grasp than having to type in everything. So we're going to need an IP address. So VNC server. Put that in. Once that's all in, we have ourselves this new desktop is Raspberry Pi :1. And we have this IP address over here. Now we did this because it might change, but in some cases it should usually just be the same address over here, just with this :1. That is a port we're using. So now we are going to head into our VNC viewer, which we had downloaded before. So if we take a look here, remember this address over here, which is what we're going to use to enter our VNC, enter our Raspberry Pi's desktop. In my case, 192.168.0.25:1. So 192.168.0.25:1. So this should automatically save the address book over here. So you have this, you press enter, connected. Identity check failed. It might not be safe to connect, but you know you're just connecting to your Raspberry Pi, so just click connect. And over here, it'll ask you to authenticate to VNC server. So in this case, we're going to use our username and password again, just like last time. Password Raspberry. And if you can change this later on. It's recommended that you do. I just have it set to Pi and Raspberry for teaching purposes. So click OK. And as you can see here, okay, and we are in our Raspberry Pi. So we can head it over here. We can go into our Thorny Python. We can do a bit of Python coding, and now you are roughly ready for class. Now I say roughly because we can do a few things to make this simpler for us. So as you can see here in VNC Viewer, we have here our IP address over here. We can connect to that whenever we want. However, we're going to want to do a few things. So first we have our Raspberry Pi over here. You're going to want to click the applications menu, go to Preferences, and head into Raspberry Pi configuration. So you can change a lot of things over here. So you can change a lot of things. I would not recommend messing with the network settings. You can hit this change password button to change your password. And if we go into interfaces over here, so we're going to want to make sure that this SSH and VNC is connected. So it's disabled now. Let's hit enabled. And once we hit that, we should be able to directly connect this time. So if I hit OK, what else we need? Okay. So now we can just I can just close the VNC viewer. Just interrupt it. Now if you look over here, we still have same IP address. Get rid of this :1. Hit enter. Or continue again. Hit that. And we're back on the desktop. We can just use our regular IP, and that makes it simpler for next time. So now you are connected to your Raspberry Pi, and now you are ready to begin programming. So thank you very much for watching. If you have any other questions, feel free to let us know, and feel free to share the details of any errors you have found. But otherwise, I hope you have a good day, and take care.